everyone, I am here with a true story out of the All Creatures book about animals. This one is called A Cat with a Mission. Here's a picture, it's black and white, but there's the cat. My nephew Jimmy just called and wanted to know if he could come out and spend a few days. So we're really excited about that. He's going to come tomorrow. He's going to bring his hamster. Twig, I think his name's Twig. Her, it's a girl. Okay, let's read A Cat with a Mission. It's by Elizabeth Malu from San Juan, California. At this historic California church, people aren't the only ones who minister. Cats have always been welcome at Old Mission San Juan Bautista, one of the 21 missions in California built by Franciscan monks in the 1800s. There's even a cat door carved into the side door of the chapel, but then they were valued for their mousing abilities. So it's only the visitors who are surprised to see Sula, the cat that has taken up residence at the mission, padding down the aisle during Mass, all white except for gray bangs and a gray tail. She never misses a service. She sits at the end of a pew or occasionally sidles up to the priest while he delivers the homily. Often she curls up in the lap of her parishioner, always someone different, as if she's singled out this one person from among the hundreds who pack the sanctuary. Wouldn't that be so sweet? I'd love it. Until recently, I'd never given it much thought. I've worshipped at the old mission since 2006, and I can't remember when Sula was not part of the church. A woman who works in the gift shop found her when she was just a kitten, and she's had a bed there ever since. There are days I barely notice her. I'm focused on the words of the homily, the Holy Communion, the prayers. I go to Mass daily. That hour to draw closer to God is as necessary as breathing. I have a high-pressure job as an international consultant. I love my work, but I couldn't do it without this time to recharge, to feed my soul, to connect with something holy. That was what I had come for Christmas Eve of 2013. I was at the 10:30 p.m. service, sitting in the middle of the sanctuary, the mission filled to overflowing. Next to me sat a tall man I'd never seen before. There are always visitors during the holidays. As the carols began, Father Jim carried the baby Jesus to the creche, turned to watch, and had to smile when I saw Sula's head poke up from the manger. Where she'd been sleeping. The cat was asleep in the manger. She yielded her place to its rightful occupant and followed Father Jim back up the aisle. She stretched out beside the altar while opening blessing was said. She was just keeping that bed warm for Jesus, what she's doing. Then something made her perk up. She scanned the crowd, trotted down the steps from the altar, and darted under the pews. I had turned my attention to Father Jim. When I felt Sula rub against my legs, I reached down to pet her. But that wasn't what she'd come for. That wasn't what she'd come for. She crept up into the lap of the stranger, nestled against him, and immediately went to sleep. He wrapped an arm around her, his eyes fixed on the altar. When the choir finished singing, he leaned over to me and whispered, "I think this is a sign from God." I thought perhaps I'd misheard him. "A sign of what?" I asked. His face turned sorrowful. "When I was a boy, I hated animals," he said. "I kicked them, threw rocks at them, especially cats. I did some awful things to cats. I really don't know what it is. My dad had a temper, and he would hit me. But that was no excuse for a moment." He was silent. "I've gone to confession," the man continued. "Asked God for forgiveness, but I've just never felt like I deserved it." I looked at Sula, resting quietly on the man's lap, as if he were the most animal-loving person on earth. He gently stroked her fur, and slowly his expression relaxed. He glanced over at me as if he just remembered my original question. I think it's a sign I've been forgiven. Sula slept on his lap throughout the Mass. He sat with her rather than disturb her rest by standing and kneeling as one does at Mass. He even sat through communion. When I left at the end of the service, he was still sitting there, cuddling Sula. How had she known? Could it have been anything more than chance? Animals know. I don't care what people say. They do. The next year was a difficult one for Sula. She received a diagnosis of skin cancer, one of the hazards of being an outdoor cat in sunny California. She had to have both of her ears removed. Oh, poor baby. Parishioners gladly donated the money for her surgeries and veterinary care. Of course, we prayed for her. Some took Sula into their homes until she was strong enough to return to her bed amid the hustle and bustle of the gift shop. By Christmas time, she was like her old self again. I was running late that Christmas Eve, and the only seat left was in the very last row. I squeezed in. I was surprised to find Sula sleeping on the lap of the woman next to me. The cat just came right up to me, she said. It was almost as if she was searching for me. Yes, she does seem attracted to certain people, I agreed. I think St. Francis gave me a job tonight to hold the cat and warm her up from the cold, the woman said. Her eyes grew moist, and I knew again that this was no ordinary encounter. I told her Sula's name and about her struggle with cancer. She had Sula close. She held her close. When it was time for communion, the woman was reluctant to put the cat down. I suggested that Sula might sleep on the woman's scarf. Sure enough, when we returned, Sula was still there, fast asleep. The organist played the opening notes of the recessional. Sula stirred and stretched. When Father Jim reached our pew, he reached over and petted Sula. She jumped to the floor and followed him out the door. I glanced at the woman next to me. Her face was radiant. There was a peace about her that I felt sure she hadn't known of late. Again, I found myself wondering if Sula could actually be receiving some sort of divine direction. I wanted to believe it, but the rational, logical part of me still wasn't convinced. Until a few weeks later, it was a Saturday night. Work pressures were grinding down on me, and there wasn't enough time to get all my weekend chores done. I didn't feel like going to church. It seemed like one more thing. I had a lot to do. I went anyway. The whole service, I was on edge, looking at my watch, fidgeting when suddenly Sula appeared at my feet. She crawled up into my lap, and immediately my stress left me. They'll do that. It's amazing how much sadness and stuff you can be in, then a little fur baby comes up to you and shows you love, and then you feel so much better. I miss it so much. Sherman and I both miss it so much. I snuggled her inside my coat. A feeling of calm came over me, as if I were the one being held, and I knew we were both here for a reason. I hope you guys enjoyed that story of Sula, and I hope you guys have a great night. Good night, guys.